now, you can manifest that trauma even on the social level. You can hire politicians to go out and murder in your name. If that makes you happy, if your whole inner violence, your violence towards yourself is so severe, then of course then we enter into this whole situation in which we have the nemesis, the shadow in the world, and the whole guilt complex that's operating in people that keeps them in these inauthentic lifestyles. So the human being needs a radical change of their psychology, and I believe those days are coming. I believe that they're not going to get away with it because nature has its own purity, its own methodology for waking people up.
Yeah, I've often thought that no matter what we do, Mother Earth will, kick us in the butt when it's so needed.
Even if you get into the science of it, Bruce Lipton, 99 point something is our unconscious mind. The little part that we use that causes all our problems, it's only the smallest part of ourselves. So we have another brain, another mind that is tapped in, to the universal matrix. And despite our own conscious, egoistic, violating life, there is something else within us that is connected to the truth and desires balance and is screaming in pain because the conscious mind is not aligning with the truth and is not being virtuous. Well, there's a whole part of ourselves that's in disaffection because of that. Human beings need to get off the medication, stop escaping, stop running to the fashions and all of this stuff, and face themselves within and say that I'm going to put down all of these roles and this nonsense of the performance because that is not helping me. It's condemning me to further agony, and it's condemning the world. So, to hell with all of these addictions and this medication, which of course also then helps these leviathans, these monopolies, stay in existence. And people need to start turning to face themselves, because if they don't, we might be in the end of the civilizations that people think have been created.
This is something I wanted to ask you too, and this may be skipping ahead a whole lot, but I want to ask it before I forget. I've often thought that what's going on, especially in the States and to an extent maybe the UK too, that and here in Canada too. That this whole thing that's going on now, this Illuminati or whatever one wants to call it, they're in their death throes. That's my belief. Do you agree with that, or do you think it's just they're doing their thing?
No, I very much believe that. You see, I believe that the kind of evil that we have got in our world is a fairly recent historical phenomenon. Because our own lives are so short, we kind of think, this is an eternal problem. Mm-hmm. It's not. And evil has an agenda. And it's rooted in our unconscious, but say for a moment we just want to keep it sort of political and not observe the psychological aspect for a moment. In my work I talk about the origins of the kind of people who rule from behind the throne. And I very much talk about the end date of 2012. And we're actually in a countdown situation to that now. From the beginning of 2007, and so it's interesting that we're doing this talk right now, because 2007's opening is a very, very important date, astrologically and astronomically, to the countdown, and it's going to be a twofold type of thing. As these darker forces start to have to deal with who they are and come to their denouement, the human race will have a greater opportunity to find out all the things that have been hidden from it. So it's both constructive and destructive. There is going to be a greater chance to find out, if people have the curiosity and people have the interest, this is the time where they're going to have some of the big questions answered for them. And it's going to happen easily, and it's going to happen naturally. If people can apply their mind to it, they're going to have incredible revelations that centuries after centuries after centuries of human people did not have and could never have had, these revelations that are about to come now. We're living in what the Maya priests called the time of apocalypse, which just means unveiling, revealing.
A new beginning.
A new beginning.
Yeah.
But the other side of that is that the word apocalypse meant a lid or a covering, a leather covering, and it really refers to the human persona. It really refers to the human mask. And when these masks are starting to come down, individuals are going to start showing who they really are. This is going to happen from the level of ordinary relationships all the way up to the government, all the way up to the corridors of power. And individuals don't want the mask to slip. It's not that they're willingly doing this. It's going to be forces of a kind of energy, a light, that's coming in to expose this kind of thing. It's kind of a dark light. It's governed by the planet Pluto and by Scorpionic and Aquarian Uranian power, if you get into the astrological jargon of it. It's also created, it's psychologically, it's to do with the shadow personality and the projections that people have. So individuals are not wanting their masks to slip. In fact, they're benefiting from having those masks. They can get away with murder. But there's some force that's going to come and try to take away those masks. And that is going to be a massive exposure for a lot of people. It will also expose all the corruption that is on the governmental level, as you were talking about. And so those forces are going to have to deal with it. And because of the unveiling of this kind of, disease, there is a good chance then that the human race can rid itself of this, type of life that we've created, type of leaders or misleaders, and we can start again afresh from 2012. Given what the prophets are saying about 2012, and given the way that it was expressed, it looks like that it really will be a major change, a major leveling. It's not going to be just a little phase shift at that particular date. It could be a very, very radical, massive worldwide change, and if the dark forces have their way, you see, the trouble with evil, and you people have seen this in Star Wars and in Star Trek, is that a being can get so evil that they'd rather go down and take everybody with them if they knew they had to expire themselves.
Yeah, that's the scary part.
Right, and they may not even be in control of that kind of instinct, because it is an instinct. It's a death instinct. I mean, for years and years and years, people thought that, people had their hand on the button and could just press it and the nuclear war would begin. Well, it's along those lines. If you're so psychopathic and so megalomaniac, my mind goes to the Star Trek 3 movie, or I think it was Star Trek 2, The Wrath of Khan or whatever, where this kind of creature wants to blow up the whole universe just because he's got to die. They say, hey, chump, you go and kill yourself. The world will be rid of you. But what the problem is that we don't understand that these people are very, very megalomaniacal and highly, evil. They basically, this is the fact of the matter. And you see, how do we know that they tomorrow will not, take away more and more of our rights? How do you know that tomorrow they will not unleash a kind of a plague? How do you know that they won't infect the whole human race and then say, hey, we're going to give you this we have the here's a kind of an AIDS type of thing that's going around, and so many people have caught this, and we're going to hand you the antidote, but you got to do what we say in order to get it. Whatever. There's so many different scenarios that could happen.
Yeah.
Or it could be a third world war in which they're going crazy. Countries, Iraq. It's not just a question of oil that is needed. Water is a big problem.
That's going to be the big thing now, is water. Right,
the water. So and then we've got predictions about America running out of its oil, and the whole changeover of these kind of fossil fuels. You see, so we're living in a time where there's a feeling of great insecurity upstairs in the corridors of power for whatever reason. But this was predicted years ago. Even in the movie, 3 Days of the Condor, my mind goes to think of that movie, in which the whole theme of that movie is about planning a war, going through a war game, in order to get ready for the real war that might be happening. A CIA within the CIA, you see? So we've already been told, we've already been shown. But it's just like the normal insecurity that a person has when there's a job loss, or when, how are we going to pay our rent, or where's the next food going to come from? You see, individuals have this trauma on their individual private life, where there's a major upset or a trauma or a death or a robbery. Well, you're not acting in the same way. You're totally in panic. You don't even sleep. Everybody is infected by the panic. Well, you imagine that insecurity multiplied many, many, many times up on the government level there. Anything's justified to them. Murdering and slaughtering the whole, the whole world is perfectly justifiable now.
Yeah.
Because individuals are living out of connection with the natural order. Nature will provide everything. There's geniuses in our midst that can use free energy devices. I laugh at these people who are trying to, joke about. They're not joking. They're serious about, the ending of fossil fuels, and they're nearly pulling their hair out over that.